Have you ever had that experience where you meet someone, a new friend, a business partner, maybe even on a first date, and it just feels like absolute magic?
Mm-hmm.
Like your wavelengths just aligned perfectly. We call it chemistry. But today, we're going to look behind the curtain.
Yeah.
We're doing a deep dive into the hidden architecture of connection. We're looking at the tools used by people whose entire careers depend on controlling attention. Mentalists, elite athletes.
That's the mission.
Yeah.
We've been analyzing sources from academic proxemic theory and evolutionary psychology, all the way to biographies of illusionists like David Blaine, and masters of movement, think Kobe Bryant and Bruce Lee. We're going to extract 3 core, powerful, and often totally unseen strategies. The goal is to give you a shortcut to mastering these dynamics.
And the key insight here is so crucial. Authentic connection. It's less about being spontaneous and way more about having this deep, invisible, structural preparedness.
Exactly. The true masters always have a structure, even if the result looks completely effortless to the person they're with.
Okay, so where do we start?
Let's start with the fundamental layer. We're calling it the invisible wall. The science of proxemics.
The invisible wall. I like that. It's a powerful way to frame personal space.
It is, because it's structural to all human interaction. Proxemics, which was defined by an anthropologist, Edward Hall, way back in '68, is just the study of how physical space and distance influence communication.
And we use those metaphors all the time. Feeling close to someone or distant.
The spatial relationship perfectly mirrors the relational one. It's not an accident.
We do it instinctively. If someone's too loud, we back away. If we're sharing a secret, we lean in.
That's your body doing what's called effective regulation on the fly. You're balancing emotion. You adjust that interpersonal distance to modulate discomfort or reduce the anticipation of a threat.
Okay.
And what's really crucial to get here is that your brain doesn't strictly differentiate between real, actual spatial input and imagined spatial input.
Wait, hold on. So my body processes an anticipated threat or comfort based on where I think someone might move, just as strongly as where they actually are.
Precisely. You're constantly running these spatial calculations. And that's what gives physical distance and the manipulation of that space such immense psychological power. It's a core safety mechanism.
So beyond space, there's the body's own language kinesics, non-verbal communication. How powerful is it, really? I feel like I've heard that 90% of all communication.
Yeah, that 90% figure, it's a bit misleading. It comes from some older, pretty narrow studies.
Okay.
More recent findings put the true impact closer to, say, 65%, which is still...
Full 2/3, that's huge.
It's massive. And the reason it's so dominant is because nonverbal communication is considered more believable. It's seen as way more involuntary than what we say, especially when those two messages conflict.
So we look to the body for the truth. If someone asks, "Are you okay?" we instinctively look at their posture, their face, their hand, to figure out the angle of the question.
Exactly. Are they genuinely worried, or are they being, passive-aggressive? The body often betrays the true intent.
So give us some of those cues.
Okay, a classic is the closed posture. Crossing your arms or legs is literally a physical barrier. It signals discomfort, maybe even a bit of anger.
But the one I found most fascinating in our sources was the exit signal.
Oh, yeah, reading the feet. If you're talking to someone, a date, a job candidate, whatever, and they're leaning back and their toes are pointed toward the door,
They're out.
they're subconsciously looking for a way out. They are physically oriented toward escape, no matter how polite their words are.
But how do you avoid, overanalyzing? Like, what if someone's just fidgety? How do you tell the difference between a nervous tick and a real exit signal?
That's a great question, because overanalyzing just creates more anxiety. The key is coherence. The exit signal is almost never isolated. It usually comes with other things, a lack of eye contact, maybe their torso is tilted away from you, they're less responsive. It's a whole package of signals, not just one toe.
That makes sense.
And finally, when we talk nonverbal power, we have to mention touch. We're not talking about intimacy here, but dominant touch, grabbing an arm, or that hand on the small of the back to guide someone.
Yeah.
It's often an unconscious tool to assert power.
That's a perfect pivot, actually. Because now we're moving from just reading signals to actively and hopefully ethically controlling them. Which brings us to the magician's playbook. Modern mentalists, people like David Blaine, they are masters of psychological illusionism. This isn't psychic ability. It's a blend of cognitive psychology, body language reading, and misdirection.
The core skill is attention control. Misdirection is literally the art used to arrest, direct, captivate, compel, and control an audience's focus. You divert it from the secret move, what illusionists call the temps.
Right, like the classic conjurer who pulls a bright handkerchief from one pocket to get everyone to look there.
While secretly dropping the deck of cards from his other hand.
Exactly. Attention is a finite resource, and they are experts at leveraging that limitation.
So psychological leverage. Absolutely, and we found two techniques they use that translate directly to building rapport. First is the invisible pass. In relationships, this is a covert, subtle, guide-like, precisely mirroring someone's body language or their breathing rhythm.
So you're not saying, hey, I get you. You're showing it subconsciously, and the other person just feels understood, they feel safe.
Precisely. It bypasses their conscious filter. The second technique is called proxemic receding.
Okay.
This exploits that constant spatial calculation we talked about. It involves physically moving away slightly, maybe leaning back in your chair to lower the density of what psychologists call peripersonal space.
That invisible bubble.
Yeah.
So what does moving away actually do?
It triggers something called the pursuit principle. It's based on reactance theory. When you move back, you create this tiny emotional vacuum. It causes the other person to subtly lean in, physically or emotionally, to close that gap. They lower their guard because it feels like they are the ones initiating. It actually accelerates the emotional process.
That's powerful. Sometimes moving away is the fastest way to draw someone in. But that feels, and that brings us right to the ethical line. This stuff sounds incredibly ripe for manipulation.
They are, and that is the critical question. When does leverage become manipulation?
Right.
The line is drawn by intent and outcome. Using a technique like proxemic receding is unethical if your goal is to bypass someone's boundaries, create an unequal power dynamic, or, erode their autonomy.
The intent is everything. Are you trying to connect deeply, or are you trying to gain control?
Yes, and we see manipulative tactics that directly mirror these powerful techniques. Take love bombing.
Oh yeah, a huge red flag.
A huge red flag. Excessive affection and attention that feels too intense too soon. It uses intense proximity and positive attention to overwhelm a partner to gain control. Genuine interest, on the other hand, it nurtures things slowly. It respects space.
It makes perfect sense. And speaking of manipulation, our sources talk about how learning to spot the fakes like celebrity psychics helps us value true connection more.
Exactly. The psychic trick is to shoot an arrow and then paint a target around wherever it landed. They use incredibly vague language, general guesses, and a ton of editing to take credit for lucky hits.
Right.
A mentalist is an honest trickster. A fake psychic is just using misdirection for profit.
That idea of efficient, precise intent is the perfect segue to our 3 elite strategies pulled from masters of movement, the athletes. We're talking about genuine relationship craftsmanship now.
We've distilled it into 3 core principles. First one, the proxemic emotional fadeaway. This is Kobe Bryant's signature move, that fadeaway jumper applied to relationships.
I remember reading about Kobe's obsession with detail, studying a cheetah's balance to refine the shot. So applying that to relationships must be intense.
It's all about precise timing. In a relationship, the fadeaway means physically receding or maybe lowering your vocal intensity, de-escalating, right after a moment of high connection. You actively create exit space.
Why is that so essential, especially in, say, long-term relationships? Wouldn't constant connection be better?
Counterintuitively, no. It prevents what's called enmeshment and, relational flatlining. If proximity is constant, desire and individual identity start to fade. The fadeaway allows desire to reform naturally. It gives the relationship room to breathe.
It's the confidence to step back and trust the connection. Okay, what's number 2?
Number 2 is non-telegraphic movement. This comes straight from Bruce Lee's philosophy, Jeet Kune Do. He wanted to eliminate all the non-essential flowery gestures to maximize efficiency.
So in a relationship, that means what?
It means your humor, your affection, your gestures of care, they have to feel authentic, emergent, not forced or calculated. If someone can see you trying to be funny or trying to flirt...
Oh, it's the worst. It just activates all my social defense mechanisms.
Exactly. It activates those filters. Non-telegraphic action bypasses them because it feels completely uncontrived. It's effortless effort.
Like your example, silently ranking dinner options on a menu and shouting them out at the same time. You can't plan that.
Right. It's low effort, high authenticity fun. Okay, and our third strategy, the Mamba mentality.
Kobe's philosophy. Obsessive preparation, relentless attention to detail. Applying that to a partner. honestly, it sounds exhausting.
It's not about exhaustion, it's about obsessive attunement. It means constantly observing your partner, noticing the micro withdrawals, the energy shifts when they tense up versus when they relax.
Okay, I see.
The goal is such a deep understanding of their needs that you can provide comfort through reliability and pleasure through precise attunement. You're prepared for their needs before they even have to say them.
So it's not about dominating, it's about relentlessly mastering the partnership. What's the most actionable way to start training that Mamba level focus?
Active listening. It directly translates that focus into emotional connection. But to do it properly, you have to be fully present, phone away, really focused. And you have to reflect what they're saying, summarize their feeling or their point. And this is the hardest part. Do not offer advice unless you are explicitly asked.
So hard. And don't deflect by talking about yourself.
So hard. Our brains are trained to jump in with our own stories. But the research is clear. Studies on straight couples who practiced active listening felt way more satisfied with their relationships. It signals, I value us more than my need to be heard right now.
That brings us to the bigger picture payoff here. The evolutionary and historical evidence for these skills. Let's talk about creativity. Our sources link it. Humor, art, storytelling to evolutionary success.
Yeah, creativity is what's called a costly signal of fitness and intelligence. It's like a mental peacock's tail.
I like that.
It signals genetic superiority. I mean, one finding showed that everyday creative activity and men writing, performing was positively associated with having a higher number of sexual partners. It shows resilience and resourcefulness.
And we see modern professions that naturally cultivate this.
Totally. Think of healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses. They combine competence, reliability, and calm authority. Their training demands intense attunement and builds felt safety. Teachers, too, they're masters of emotional literacy and pacing.
Now let's zoom way out to the historical masters of leverage. We have King Solomon, managed a network of 700 wives and 300 concubines.
His survival suggests a mastery of the proxemic fadeaway on a geopolitical scale. He gave just enough attention to maintain loyalty and stability without overcommitting to any one party.
And then you have Genghis Khan.
Complete non-telegraphic efficiency. Reproductive intent was just a byproduct of political and military leverage. His moves were ruthlessly efficient.
Brutal. Okay, let's bring it back to a more relatable scale with Harry and Bess Houdini. Their 31-year partnership was based on intense collaboration, and they had this genius system for conflict based purely on proxemics.
The famous hat trick. When they argued, Harry would go for a walk. When he came back, he'd throw his hat into the room. If Bess threw it back out, she was still angry and needed space.
And if the hat stayed,
the argument was over and he could come in. They managed conflict with a clear, pre-agreed signal about emotional and physical availability. It was their fade-away protocol.
that's the ultimate pre-fight preparation. Okay, so to recap our three big takeaways. We have the fadeaway for managing space and desire, non-telegraphic movement for authenticity, and Mamba mentality for relentless structural attunement.
These strategies provide the invisible structure for real connection, all by mastering attention and managing space. And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to take with you.
The ultimate mindset shift.
Stop thinking about what is best for you or what your preferences are. Instead, look at the relationship as its own separate thing, a third entity distinct from you and your partner.
And ask
yourself, what does our relationship need?
That reframing changes everything.
It does. Your traits, your skills. They should serve the relational entity's needs for stability and growth, not just your own ego or short-term desires. That willingness to prioritize the us over the me, that's where the real sustainable magic happens.